Namaskar, Vanakkam. Welcome back to the Vegan Veranda, your favorite place for all things Indian and vegan. And like we said in the last podcast episode, international. Maybe. Let's see in the future.
So today we have a very special guest with us. Me and Gaurav were just talking about who to call and what is happening in the community and stuff like that, right? And immediately we come up with a lot of divisive politics and stuff like that is happening around these days. So we were like, who is the king of tackling intersection? Has to be George Martin from UK. Hi George, how are you today?
Hey guys, thanks a lot for having me on. Yeah, it's good to be here.
So I've been hearing about your work for a while now. Aravind has told me you're quite active on Facebook and YouTube, and I had the good fortune of checking out your videos as well. To anyone listening, this is George, and he has a good channel called Carnism Debunked. I think you're there by the same name on Facebook and Twitter as well.
Yes, I'm not on Twitter, but yeah, on Instagram I've got Carnism_debunked on that as well. Yep.
Yeah, so we'll just put his links in the description. So welcome to the show, George. Tell us what you would like to tell us about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So I've been vegan now since 2013. It was early 2013. And I went vegan after watching Gary Yourofsky's speech. And then I got really active doing proper activism, I'd say sort of around, I was doing a lot of online advocacy as well. So I began to build myself sort of a platform on Facebook and things like that just through my statuses and stuff. A lot of people liked the way I wrote about animal liberation issues. And then from there, I started doing street outreach and stuff like that. So I used to be active with Anonymous for the Voiceless. I'm now active with We the Free. It's the newer outreach group, and I'm an organizer of the Bristol chapter here. I set up the Carnism Debunked website in 2017 as a way to just sort of debunk all the standard anti-vegan arguments we get. And it's a website that both non-vegans and vegans can use for, if you're vegan, it can help you to debunk those. And if you're non-vegan, hopefully it will debunk the arguments that you already have and actually help you make the switch.
As influential as you are, it is a natural question to think of that. How were you as a person, in your childhood, and were you this kind of animal lover? Were you something, along the lines of, something diametrically opposite to who you are today, or something like that?
That's a good question. I would say technically I was kind of opposite to who I was today, but maybe through action more than ideology. Because deep down, no child wants to, oppress animals and abuse animals. But that's exactly what we're doing when we buy the products of animal oppression. And I used to engage in these behaviors myself all the way up until I was 23. So it wasn't really something I'd given much of a thought about, really. And I guess I was a hypocrite, right? As a young adult, if someone would have murdered my dog, I'd have thought that person was the most evil person in the world and wanted to kill them myself. But then I'm paying for the murder of pigs and cows, and I probably just thought, this is just the way the world works, and this is just food. And it really wasn't something that had massively occurred to me until my blinkers were taken off by Gary Yourofsky's speech. I used to go fishing and stuff when I was a kid as well. So unfortunately, I hate to say I've murdered animals with my own hands as well, because I used to actually catch the fish and kill them myself. And that just shows that if I can change, so many people can change, because I was never exposed to veganism. And even if you'd have told me when I was a kid, would I ever be vegetarian one day, I'd have probably just laughed. And I never was vegetarian, can I just say, because vegetarianism is pointless, right? And as soon as I saw Gary Yourofsky's speech, it was clear to me that I needed to be vegan and not vegetarian.
Yeah.
I think that is quite fascinating because a lot of people will say it's too hard for me. I'm too engulfed in that lifestyle. It's too late for me or something like that. But like you said, if you can make it, then anyone can do it.
Yeah, 100%. It's just it just shows what a sick society we're indoctrinated into, and we're brainwashed. We're controlled to do things that go against our natural inclinations. A lot of people say, it's nature that we do this to animals and blah, blah, blah. But I think, if anything, most people deep down have a natural feeling to actually want to protect others. We don't like, even when we're non-vegan, we don't like seeing the sight of animals having their throats slit. We don't like seeing any of that stuff. And that's our natural, our real selves within us saying this is wrong. But then, society is just telling us, no, it's bad, isn't it? But this is just the way the world works, and this is just what you got to do. So you just sort of nod along with it. And it just shows you how, if something is normalized, people tend to think that it's moral just because everyone else is doing it. But that's far from the truth, as we've seen through many atrocities throughout history.
Yeah. In fact, now that you've mentioned society, I just want to kind of, ask you, when you did make the change, right, when you did go vegan, how did your friends and family react to it, and what was their reaction to it, and how did you cope up with that?
Well, my friends were absolutely astonished, first of all. But my friends would have never, ever, ever expected this from me at all. And this was back in 2013 as well, when veganism wasn't really that mainstream at all. It was very rare in the UK that, as it was in every country in the world, that someone was vegan, right, in 2013. And, the amount of products and stuff we had in store, things like the plant-based stuff, like the cheeses and the meats and stuff like that, they weren't anything like near what they are now. It was nothing like, it was very few products like that. So my friends were very surprised, but, they were also very receptive to my arguments. They maybe asked a few arguments and stuff first, but when I responded, they were like, yeah, fair play, kind of makes sense. My family, maybe the tiniest bit of pushback at first, just my parents being like, I remember my mum, I think she was concerned from the health perspective and stuff like that. She was saying you won't get enough calcium and all this kind of stuff. But then again, after a while, I think they saw that I was doing fine, and they warmed to it. And I still remain the only vegan in my family. But yeah, they completely understand and acknowledge the reasons and stuff. And yeah, friends and family have generally been receptive over it.
So how was the personal journey? What did you go through when you saw the video? And then you understood the arguments, and then you thought that this is the right thing to do. So was it just overnight? Was it very simple for you, or was it a drawn-out process?
Yeah, I'm sorry to say that it wasn't straight away overnight. So what happened was, I actually saw Gary Yourofsky's speech in late 2012. It must have been October, November 2012 or something. And then I kind of dicked around for a few months, the cognitive dissonance that you get, and you're asking yourself all these dumb arguments in your head. I remember thinking, for example, but if there was a spider in my room, I might kill a spider, and therefore I might as well just eat bacon, and this kind of nonsense. And of course I wouldn't kill a spider now, but this is just sort of the thought process at the time. And, I remember I'd rung my mate as well, just after I'd watched the speech, and said, you've got to watch this speech. And he comes from a farming family. And he was like, what a load of nonsense. I'm not going to watch that. And I was like, no, seriously, give it a watch. He was like, bullshit. I was going, no, seriously, just trust me, give it a watch. He was like, okay. He watched it. He rung me up straight away, and he's like, the speech is right. We have to change. And so we went vegan together in January 2013. I think one day we just put our foot down and said, you know what? We've got to do this now. We don't have any more excuses. After months of just dicking around, as I said, and then we just went bang, and we finally did it January the 8th, I think it was.
I mean, it is kind of, it's very similar to the story of Gaurav here and his brother, because they also became vegan on the same day, and they kind of decided based on the same single video that they are going to change, right?
Yeah, we just went vegetarian on the we were vegetarian, me and my brother. Yeah. And we went vegan on the same day. So it was good that you had a buddy like that who was with you in the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good to have someone who's supportive there, by your side, and you're doing that together with someone. But so shout out to all those vegans who are just doing this on their own, and who might not have been as fortunate as you and I.
So it's a like for as for me personally, when I went vegan, I've always been introverted. I don't want to talk to much people. So I was the vegan, the laid back vegan. I was the one who would sit on the same table with meat eaters, and I would not speak a word. I would just have my own vegan things. But it took me around 6 to 8 months to finally open up and start talking about it. So, would you say that activism is a very important aspect after going vegan? Like, we have to start talking about it as well.
Yeah, it's very, very important to speak up. Now, obviously, I think there's sometimes, like, I understand why people don't have to, for example, if you're sitting at the table and stuff like that, there are certain occasions where, someone might not feel kind of comfortable speaking up or something like that. But we've all got certain things that we're good at. So for me, my outlet was always like, with social media and stuff like that, that was where I would usually like express my kind of my thoughts and stuff about what's going on. But it is important that we speak up in one way or another, and doing street activism as well is a fantastic way of doing that. And yeah, it's all well and good being vegan, but the thing is, we don't go vegan for ourselves. We go vegan because we care about others, right? We're trying to reduce the amount of suffering and oppression in the world. So I don't really see it as this personal thing. I see it as a moral obligation that we go vegan. And once you go vegan, the Holocaust doesn't end just there. You have to influence others to try and end their participation in the Holocaust as well.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and mentioning about this, it also kind of brings me to the kind of imagination that activism in a country like India and in a country like UK might not be that different, but there is still that change in culture, right? So how would you describe the activism that is happening in UK, and how is the vegan community there and stuff like that?
Firstly, I think I'm very blessed to live in the UK as a vegan. I think it's a fantastic, it's got a fantastic vegan scene here. It's perhaps one of the easiest countries in the world to be vegan, if not the easiest, because UK is a pretty small place, but it's got a lot of vegans sort of packed into, per square mile, as it were. Like, you don't have to go that far to get to a vegan restaurant. It does, whatever city you're in, or whether you're going from city to city, there's loads of vegan places around, and vegan friendly places, and all the chain restaurants here now in the UK, the big chain restaurants that you see in every high street kind of thing, in every major town and city, will have a great range of vegan options as well. And the activism scene here is good as well. Like, you don't really have to travel far in order to like find an activism group that you can volunteer in. Again, it's just one of the benefits of being in quite a small country that's kind of densely populated for its size. We're just a small group of islands, but we've got 60 million people or something like that, and many vegans as well, like in comparison to other countries percentage wise. Unfortunately, most of those people, just like anywhere, who say they're vegan are actually plant-based, and they're still buying cow flesh shoes and wearing wool and all that kind of bullshit, because you do get a lot of people who falsely self-identify as vegan, right? But yeah, generally I think that the scene here is great.
It's great, man. Once you become an activist, not so much so when you are a vegan, but when you start talking about it, you start engaging people online and offline about it, you start to hear a lot of weird and stupid excuses. Like, even when I was vegetarian, and when you were non-vegetarian, you used to have meat, even then I would not have said that plants feel pain. It's such a ridiculous thing to say. So
it's crazy.
So my point is, what are the excuses that you have heard that are not so common, or maybe that are specific to your country, that we might not have heard of, or some very weird ones?
So I'll start with the weirdest one that I've ever heard, the most absurd argument that I've ever heard for veganism. It was actually someone on Facebook, and they argued that if we don't eat animals, they will evolve into giant serpents and overrule the human race. So he's talking about pigs and cows and chickens here. This was his argument. So that was the most out there one that I've heard. As for arguments that people might use in the UK that they don't use so much in other countries, do you know what? I don't think we have any. I'll tell you a very common one, though, that is used in the UK that I think is actually used in many countries. And that's because people here are so brainwashed into thinking that, oh, this is the UK, everything happens here nicely, it's all humane. And that's, you know, just what I was saying there. And I know you get this bullshit in India as well. It's, you know, these videos that you're showing there from other countries. Here, we don't do it like this. You know, we treat the animals well. So that one's very common in the UK. The idea, you know, UK has the best farming standards in the whole world. Animals aren't abused here, and it's complete bullshit.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and speaking about all of these weird excuses and weird rationalizations, right? So when we do activism in India, we come up with this very, very popular argument, which is kind of unique to India. So I just wanted to mention it to you, and you would actually find it funny, because when we just talk about veganism to a person, they would a lot of the time come up with something along the lines that veganism is a Western concept, it is a colonial idea and stuff like that. And this is exceptionally funny to me as I'm mentioning this to you, because you are from the UK, right? I mean, if we go to UK, I mean, the thing I'm imagining is I'm going to UK and there are people who whose ancestors got involved in colonialism, and they themselves are rejecting veganism. I mean, is there someone who says that veganism is an Eastern concept or something like that? Is there any such concept?
Yeah, we do hear that veganism is not an Indian concept, it's a Western concept. So do you hear the other way? Like, this is not a Western concept, it's an Eastern concept, or what?
Do you know what? Because of woke culture and how much it's impacting the West, I think it's more likely that we do hear in the West, oh, veganism is a Western concept, which is because of how much woke culture is destroying the UK. So if anything, we're hearing actually the same thing as you guys are hearing, because especially like the intersectionals and stuff we have here, they're kind of just saying that stuff as well. So I don't think it's really different. And I'm not sure what the argument is there that they're trying to make. I mean, first, it's factually incorrect and racist as well to say that the idea of caring about animal oppression is this white thing or this Western thing. I mean, that's one of the most ridiculous and insulting things you could possibly say to people all over the world. And there's a fantastic poem everyone can read called Why I No Longer Steal from Nature, which is over 1,000 years old, written by an Arab guy called Al-Mari in what would now be modern day Syria. That was, 1,000 years ago. This is before the word vegan was ever invented. I think what they're getting confused about is the word vegan and the idea of the vegan society. That was founded in the UK, you see, in the 40s by Donald Watson and his friends, right? So they just coined the term vegan. But people have, Carnists always say, people have been eating animals throughout history. People have not been eating animals throughout history in cultures all over the world. So veganism isn't a Western concept. And even if it was, who fucking cares? What's the point that these people are trying to make anyway? Let's say it was a Western concept. Well, great, it's a good Western idea if there is one, right?
I mean, we took a lot of Western ideas. We took Western sanitation, we took Western medicine, we took Western aviation, we took Western languages. Why not just take a compassionate philosophy, right?
If it's a good idea, then how does it matter where it's from?
Exactly. And and it's not even the case that it is anyway. So, I'm not even sure what these people are trying to say. It's nonsense.
There are a lot of ancient Indian texts as well, which talk about a sattvic diet, which is considered to be the pure diet.
Okay.
And that was basically what people just had raw. They just plucked the fruits and the vegetables, and that's all they ate. So that is what we tell people. Like, you read the ancient texts, which they don't,
Yeah.
It is there in our country. It is there in every country. Like the previous podcast we did with this Japanese dude, he also said that it was in their country as well from the ancient times.
Yeah.
So anybody, please stop using this excuse.
Yeah, I heard about Japan as well. I think there are specific restaurants you can go to in Japan which are just by default all vegan friendly. Though I think it's maybe for this kind of like spiritual purposes to do with like monks and stuff like that. But yeah, eating fully plant-based diet and stuff, and even not using animals to wearing their wool and fur and stuff like that. It's been practiced in many cultures all over the world. It's just never been popularized. It's never become mainstream. And thankfully, that's what the vegan movement is doing now. We're trying to get things mainstream.
I think you just briefly touched upon the elephant in the room, which we would like to address now, which is probably why you're most famous, or would I say controversial, regarding the battle that you've had with people claiming to be, intersectionals and all. Mm-hmm. So our stand at the Vegan Veranda has always been clear. Whatever our political beliefs are, that is our personal matter. We discuss it in private circles. Mm-hmm. But when talking about veganism, we are absolutely neutral, and that is the way the movement should be.
Yeah.
So let us know a little bit about your adventures with these, so-called human rights activists and equality for all people.
So first of all, I think the way that they present themselves is kind of patronizing because, you mentioned there equality for all. And this is what they're saying. They say these things like, oh, you can't be vegan and have this view, and you have to be intersectional because, we need to care about more than one issue at once. And, it's bad to be racist and it's bad to be sexist. Yeah, no shit. That's what we all think. The point is they think that their very specific political views have a monopoly on what it means to be anti-oppression. Studies actually show that everyone thinks that they're a good person pretty much who's doing the right thing. So for example, they'll talk about the right wing, and often in the West it's talking about Trump voters or Tory voters in the UK. People aren't voting Trump or Tory party in the UK and stuff because they want to exercise these behaviors that intersectionals are saying. It's because they believe that that is the right way to vote, and that's the least oppressive way to vote. For example, if you're a conservative, you might think that gun control is a form of oppression, the government disarming us, or you might think that socialism is oppression, so this is the thing. Intersectionals, they're trying to say that only the things that they believe, that's what it means to be anti-oppression. And this is the thing, talking about my experiences and stuff, I guess one of the things I got most heat for is the fact that I'm vocal about the fact that animal rights spaces should be inclusive of people of a wide variety on the political spectrum, all working together for animal liberation, and keep human politics and shit out of this movement, because otherwise it's just gonna be a fractured movement, and you're ultimately just gonna make it as tiny as possible. Intersectionals want us, I think part of being vegan is being, you have to support this human rights group, and you have to be anti-capitalist, and you have to have this view about abortion and all this kind of stuff like that, and you have to have their little view on everything, like a little tick list. That's just gonna make the movement less than 1% of the world shares these rather bizarre beliefs, actually, that most of them have. They have very weird kind of out there views that most people aren't receptive to. And they talk about Western centricism, and they talk about this kind of stuff about how veganism needs to be more appealing outside of the West and this kind of stuff. They're just making it more and more Western and weird, because most people across Africa and Asia and the Middle East, in comparison to the West, have highly, highly, highly conservative views. So when they see them say, this idea of for example, pro-choice, for example, on the abortion topic, I think the vast majority of people worldwide are pro-life. The vast, vast majority, right? It's considered a huge sin in most countries worldwide to abort a baby. So what are the intersectionals trying to do here? How many people are going to be on board? How many people are going to go vegan if they say, no, you have to have this exact view on this human issue, and so on? They're just going to make the movement as tiny as possible.
And I also have this dislike for the, the narrative that someone who refrains from political discourse, someone who chooses to be apolitical in a vegan sphere, right? I mean,
Yeah.
if in a vegan sphere I don't want to talk about politics, that's my personal choice. I don't want to talk about politics. You can't force me and force my hand and be like, you have to talk about this. And when you do talk
Yeah.
about this, you have to talk about this in a way that I approve of it. Else, you're out, baby.
Well, and it's so inconsistent as well, because in no other justice movement would we be so concerned about the oppressor, right? This is the thing intersectionals do. This is the animal rights movement, right? But they're trying to talk about rights of the oppressor, like it's part of, imagine that in any other justice movement. Imagine talking about ending like the Holocaust in World War II, and you have to go, oh no, but you have to have this view on Nazi rights and this kind of stuff, and Nazis are the victims, they work in the concentration camps, and it's classist and ableist to say that it's bad that they're doing this to the Jews. It would sound fucking insane. So why are they polluting the animal rights movement with this? We need to focus on non-human animals as the oppressed, and humans are the oppressor. And anything external from that, that's a separate issue in separate human justice movements.
I think Gary Yourofsky said it best. I think that he is the one who said that I will care about human issues when every animal is free.
Yeah, he did a very controversial video on that with a very spicy title that I won't say here. I think he's actually made that video private now, because I don't know if he's either maybe thought, oh damn, that video was a bit too contra, or maybe he just couldn't be bothered to deal with all the heat from it or something like that since he's retired. But yeah, this is a very common one that non-vegans say, is stuff like, why don't we sort out the human issues first, and then we can focus on animals. And Gary, he says, no, how about this? We end the animal holocaust first, which is the biggest and largest injustice of all time, bar none. Then we'll get to the human rights issues. And that would make, if you are going to prioritize, absolutely, that would make more sense. And, there are philosophers throughout history, I think Tolstoy said, for as long as there will be slaughterhouses, there will be battlefields. And it was Pythagoras who said, for as long as humans continue to murder animals, they will continue to murder each other. Those who sow the seeds of pain and murder will never reap joy nor love. So, if you're going to prioritize ending one, for sure, that's the biggest source of violence on the planet, the biggest systemic injustice there is. This should, if anything, this should be something that we really need to focus on.
Now, I just started being curious when you were talking about this. This is not something we discussed, but how do you think that we should be dealing with this issue, right? Because there can be two schools of thought. One school of thought can be like, let's just do whatever we are doing and let's just ignore these people. And the other school of thought will be like, no, if we allow them to continue, they'll proliferate and they will, they'll kind of eat the movement from inside. And both of these views have some kernel of truth within them, right? So what do you think, and how do you suggest that we deal with this issue?
Yeah, I fall into the latter camp here. I think what we're seeing, the sort of woke culture, the woke cult that is invading the vegan movement, I see it as like a virus. And if you don't stop a virus, it spreads. So we need to be active in speaking out. I want to see more people be bold enough to speak out against this, but because the way that this kind of woke cult works is through fear and intimidation. If you don't speak out about this issue, you're a racist. If you don't, have this view on this, you're a this. They label everyone. They hurl all these labels at everyone, and they try to cancel people and bully people and manipulate people into, bending the knee and conforming to every little thing that they want. Now, we have to resist that. We can't let the tactics of fear, take over the animal liberation movement and take focus away from the victims of the animal holocaust and put them onto the victimizers. And that's something we saw heavily in June last year, with the BLM stuff. Intersectionals were messaging all these animal rights pages, saying, why haven't you spoken about this issue that's gone on in Minnesota? How dare you not speak about this? Which is very US centric as well. If you notice, they never do this with other issues. They never message people saying, why aren't you speaking up about the Uyghur Muslims in China and stuff like that, or all the thousands of issues going on in the world, right? They just pick this very one minor, trivial in comparison issue in comparison to all these massive injustices happening worldwide. There's one guy dying in Minnesota, and it just kind of like, how come they didn't message BLM, say, why aren't you, BLM, speaking out against the Animal Holocaust? Up to 1 trillion animals being murdered every single year, BLM. Why aren't you speaking up about this? But of course they don't. And this is just, they talk about consistent anti-oppression. All they want to do that with is inside the animal rights movement. They never message any of the human rights pages threatening to cancel them if they don't speak up about veganism.
And the biggest thing that angered me in that particular fiasco, right? So when the entire thing erupted, a lot of these animal rights organizations, I'm not going to name which of them I'm talking about, but a lot of them sent out donations to BLM. I mean, I don't have any problem with that, but the problem lies in the fact that you're taking donations for animals. I mean, let's be perfectly honest. Animal rights are not considered as important as they are in the world, and we have less than 1% of the world's, maybe even less, maybe 0.01% of the entire charity that goes in the world, and you take that minuscule amount of money, and even that you hand it out back to these human rights organizations, and that's what really angers me.
Yeah. These speciesist human rights organizations kind of add. BLM, they engaged in disgusting acts of animal torture last year during that whole bandwagon. We saw them march through the streets with severed pigs' heads. We saw them beat raccoons to death in the street with baseball bats. There was the white puppy that got strangled and tortured. And Intersectionals said fuck all about this. And in fact, if you spoke up about any of that, you were a racist. This is just what a disease this is that's happening to the movement. The idea that even speaking about human rights groups engaging in animal oppression is racist to talk about that. And this is just, we need to be speaking out about this. And it is such a shame that so many organizations bent the knee and sent donations, because that money needs to be better. If they're an animal rights group, they need to be spending it on animal rights. They can't be helping out the oppressor. If it would be like a group against anti-Semitism sending money to Nazis. This is the way, like, to use an analogy. It's like you're sending money to the oppressors of the very victims you claim to be speaking up about, just through fear and manipulation. It's disgusting.
And especially this, they pride themselves over the control of language, right? And ironically, they were using speciesist language in their slogans. They were using phrases like frime, like bacon and stuff like that, which is essentially speciesist. They are oppressing animals through their speech, which they themselves don't agree with. They don't agree that speech, they are the ones who are like, you can oppress people with speech, but when they do it to animals, sorry, I'm not going to talk about that.
Yeah, there was a lot of hatred, the use of pigs as like this bad thing because of symbolism of police, who they see as these awful racist oppressors kind of thing. So we had a lot of this, the symbolism of the pig as a bad thing. And, as you say, they chant things through the street like pigs in a blanket, fry them like bacon. Again, Intersectionals just said fuck all about this. Where's their consistent anti-oppression? Why aren't they going to these BLM demos and saying, how dare you say that about pigs? Why aren't you vegan? Why aren't they doing this? And they, what's hilarious? You know how they always condemn the phrase all lives matter, right? They say it would be terrible to go to a BLM rally and say all lives matter. That's exactly what they're doing to the vegan movement. Intersectionals are the all lives matter people of the animal rights movement.
Yeah, that's a very accurate summary. And It's like we have a friend, right? And even he was subjected to attacks by intersectionals, and he says this very often, that I have been attacked in my life more by vegans rather than non-vegans. So, what do you think? How true is that in your case, and would you agree or would you add to that?
Like, have you been targeted by these people specifically, maybe online or offline?
Yeah, I have. I mean, unfortunately, it's part of my weekly life that I see call out posts about me all the time, and deplatform white vegans like George Martin and all this bullshit. It's really bad because, and just as you said, Aravind, like it can absolutely be the case that as a vegan now in the animal rights movement, you get more heat from your fellow so-called vegans than you do from the carnists and from the industries and stuff. Like, it's crazy. Like, I never, like, when I log on, when I go onto Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that, I never see call out posts about me from, like, bacon trolls and stuff like that. They might just leave a few dumb comments on my posts. But the people tagging me in their stories and say, deplatform this guy and kick him out of this event and this kind of stuff, it's always vegans. And this is just I see this on a weekly basis.
Speaking of that, let's move to a little bit less of a gatekeeping thing. I mean, definitely intersectionals are doing a lot of gatekeeping. Mm-hmm. They're making the vegan movement harder to get into.
Yes.
Like, if someone is saying, I want to go vegan, but then, okay, you have to qualify this as well.
Yeah.
So, keeping that political part aside, what do you think about the lesser things that people are asking? Like, once you go vegan, you have to give up palm oil also. You have to give up, almonds because they are farmed in some specific way. So what do you think about these things?
Yeah, these are sort of tough kind of grey area issues within veganism. And I think it's fine for people to have their views about that. I do think, though, we all need to just sort of focus more of our attention on what we objectively see as the animal holocaust taking place. So animals literally, having their throats slit for bacon and dairy and all this kind of stuff. Because the thing is, if you kind of get caught up in all these sort of little grey issues and stuff like that, no one can agree. No one can fully agree on all those things. These are just like little intra-vegan issues that we're all going to have different opinions on. So we ultimately have to just focus our energy on the things that we all definitely do agree on. Like recently with me, for example, and this is another thing that I had sort of like the call out posts about as well from vegans, one of which was this crazy idea. In fact, I'll tell you what they purported from this. So I have this idea that if we have the technology and capability to do so, we should absolutely intervene in nature to prevent carnivorous and omnivorous animals from, brutally killing, prey animals in nature, because it makes no difference to the victim whether the person massacring them is a human with a knife or whether it's a lion ripping their guts out. So I think we should ultimately intervene in nature if we are able to do so in the future, if we have scientific means, whatever it is. I care about suffering. I care about animal suffering. And I think the intersectionals latched onto this, and they said this was some kind of white supremacist idea of mine, because what I wanted to do was like, I think they claimed that my idea was to like wipe out vast areas of like African forest and build like plant-based meat factories there, and then like enslave Africans for this like white supremacist scheme or something to make me money or something like that. It was just the most out there insane theory. But yeah, going back to that, this is the thing, like, and even though I feel quite strongly about wild animals killing other wild animals, and I think we should stop it, I don't start going around saying to other vegans and stuff, you can't be vegan if you don't want to intervene in nature and that kind of thing. So that's how we need to be. Like, we need to kind of just, we might feel that issue is important to us, but ultimately we all agree that just generally the animal holocaust should end, and that's what we need to really be focusing on and working on together.
I mean, 99.99% of all the human to animal oppression that is happening in the world is happening in the meat, dairy, and fish and other kind of animal related industries, right? It's not happening in palm oil, it's not happening in almond farming, it's not happening for avocados, it's not happening for those reasons. It's literally happening only because of the majority of the people, they eat like steaks and chicken and stuff like that. That's where the main suffering is. So just like Gary says, let's take that out first, and then we can come and take out these minuscule kind of niche areas of suffering.
Yeah, like our channels, our standpoint on this has been, you just qualify the basic essentials. You just stop, the meat, dairy, wearing animals and the tested products. You just stop these basic things. After that, whatever you do, you're vegan. After that, you can take it as far as you want. Like, you want to go raw, you do that. You want to stop using palm oil, do that. But don't keep your additional beliefs as a impediment to getting people into veganism.
Yeah, because people will end up just thinking it's impossible, and it's confusing as well because the different vegans are saying different things. Imagine if I said that part of being vegan was to stop hyenas from killing wildebeest. People wouldn't go vegan. So even though I do want to stop hyenas from killing wildebeest, I can't say that that's part of being vegan, because again, this is just one. Otherwise, I'm kind of acting almost like an intersectional, and I'm just trying to get the vegan movement to be as tiny as possible.
And funnily enough, when you say that you have to be vegan, you have to when we talk to people about veganism, they always come up with this, oh, what about the lions? Oh, what about the tigers? Oh, what about the hyenas? And then you're like, okay, we have to stop the hyenas, we have to stop the lions, we have to and then it's like just mind blown.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, maybe I should answer with that next time.
So, you've been in the activism scene for quite a while. You've done some online activism, offline activism. So, would you like to give us your ranking of what is the best, modes of activism, the best, output that we can give from our time and efforts? So, for a lot of, famous Indian activists, so many of them will say that, first of all, focus on online activism. Secondly, you should try to go for, lectures and seminars. And then the other things take a backseat. So what is your idea on the tiers?
So what I've found to be most rewarding, firstly, I love speaking out online and stuff, because that's where my talent lies. I'm really good at writing content. So, content creation online and stuff is my strong point. But I think the thing that makes me feel the most fulfilled after a good day of it would often be street outreach. Because you really feel that once you've spoken to someone face to face and you've seen them, cry real tears over the footage that you're showing them and stuff on the street, which does happen quite a lot, you go home thinking, damn, I've potentially changed someone for good today. And you get much more feedback from it. Because when you write content and stuff online, you get a lot of likes and stuff from vegans, but you don't always know how receptive the non-vegan audience is to it. Whereas in real life, if you do street outreach, you can really get a sense that you've achieved something. The only thing is, it's very inconsistent. It's very hit and miss. Sometimes I'll get back from an outreach event and I won't have changed a single person, and it will have just been a terrible day, and no one was receptive at all to the things that I was saying. Or if they were receptive, they might have just been sort of nodding their head and stuff like, oh yeah, this is bad, wow, yeah, but then they go off and they eat a burger. So yeah, I think there's many things, also obviously if you're talking about effective forms of activism as well, direct liberation, because you can literally save a life, so I encourage activists, if they can, to engage in direct liberation missions and stuff, going to farms and slaughterhouses and whatever, and actually directly rescuing animals there from being murdered. But there's the thing is, there's a lot of people out there who say, I can't do activism and I can't do this. There is a form of activism every single person can do. And you know, a lot of intersectionals are saying this is ableist and stuff to say that. But it's not. Who hasn't got time or the ability to write a Facebook status or share a video that you saw on YouTube? That's activism. You're trying to change the world. You're sharing something on a public forum in hope that other people will see it and change their views.
Yeah. So, I mean, so what do you suggest for someone who is just starting out in their activism, right? For someone who has just turned vegan and kind of wants to do activism, has the drive to do activism, but doesn't know where to go. I mean, there are two kinds of schools of thought, right? You can either be an independent grassroots activist, or you can join an organization and work full time as an activist. So for someone starting out, what would you suggest? What way should they go?
Well, firstly, don't run before you can walk is the first thing I'd say. You know, as soon as you go vegan and you want to get active, you're not going to have any kind of platform at all. People aren't going to know you. You need to build a community around you first, and you need to actually, you know, make some sort of a name for yourself so that if you do want to work for an animal rights organization, they're going to think, oh, so-and-so, yeah, he's good, I'm going to hire him or her. So you have to put yourself out there first a bit and build. I think that's the first thing I would say, is kind of build like an online community, especially as you feel very lonely and isolated at first when you go vegan. Like I remember when I first went vegan in 2013, like it just felt kind of like me and my friend were the only ones really. But then as I started writing Facebook statuses about it, random vegans who had just seen it somehow would just like add me on Facebook, and you know, I'd get one friend request one week, then the next week I might get 2 friend requests, and then 3, and it just sort of snowballed from there. And then I just had a big, you know, community of vegan friends around me on social media. And now when I'm writing a status, you know, it's getting shared far and wide, and people are making it into memes and all this kind of stuff. And, you know, you're collabing with people and doing videos, and you find out about certain activism groups. And I think social media is just an extremely important way of staying engaged, and actually it opens up opportunities and it broadens your horizons. So building a community of people around you online, I think, is very important for a new activist.
To steal one of the things one of our previous podcasts guests said, I say this on every episode to every new person. He was just doing activism. He was like going in a mall, and he was like trying to talk to people about what happens to the animals.
Yeah.
And that guy was just looking at his phone. You know, he was engaged in his phone somehow. So he just thought to himself, man, this guy is not paying attention to me. I'll do one thing. I'll appear in your phone, so that since you're glued to it all day, you'll just watch my content.
Yeah. Great tactic. And this is what, you know, this is the thing. This is how media is consumed these days. Everyone's glued to their phones, and we need to put ourselves out there. And this is the thing with YouTube as well. We're so undersubscribed as a movement on YouTube. Like, it's so fucking hard to get subscribers and stuff. So we need to be supporting each other's channels and stuff online. You know, my rule with it is, if you see an animal rights channel on YouTube, even if you don't watch it, even if you don't really know it, just click subscribe, because we need to be building each other up, building that platform online. We need to be taking over the social media sphere online. You know, currently when people type vegan on YouTube, it's just like cooking recipes and stuff. We need animal rights. You know, we need animal rights content to be at the forefront of that. I want it that when people type vegan, you know, up comes all this animal rights content and shows them why they should be vegan, not how they should be vegan. The how is not so important. The why is the important thing.
I mean, if the why is in place, then the how automatically falls into place, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, if you're passionate enough about it, you'll find all the recipes that you want and all that kind of stuff.
I think even the first things that you get when you search for vegan, even now, I think in the top 3 or top 5 posts, Gary's speech will be there.
That's good. That's good to hear, because, you know, this is it's a highly viewed speech, but not highly viewed enough.
Yeah.
You know, I think it's had, 3 million, 4 million maybe views? Maybe 2 million, I'm not sure. And, you know, it's great, and it's changed so many people. But imagine the impact that speech could have if absolutely everyone saw that. My God.
I mean, we have like shitty pop songs with like 2 billion views, right?
I was gonna say, pop music covers those number of views in hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. The world is fucked, right? I mean, Paris Hilton is more famous than Gary Yourofsky. That's how shit this world is.
Yeah.
So, have you heard anything about the Indian vegan scene, or like what are your perceptions about being vegan in India?
Yeah, I've heard a lot about the Indian vegan scene, and I think that from the sounds of it, you guys have some very strong and dedicated activists there, but the brainwashing, the cultural indoctrination in India is so strong that despite you being a population of 1 billion people, and despite so many people not eating flesh anyway, because it's the most vegetarian country in the world, right? Like 50% of India is vegetarian. It's so hard to get through to people because of politics and culture and religion and stuff, and they almost feel like that when you're trying to get people to go vegan in India, it's like you're kind of attacking them and their identity, which is this extra barrier. And as you know, I had forgot his name now on the YouTube podcast, on the podcast that I do.
You did one with Alta Hussain.
Yes. Yeah, and we spoke about. He said that if you were to do, if you were to speak the way you speak, he said, George, in India, he said you would be dead by now. he said, that it's so bad in India that like you get threats of violence and stuff like that. So, shout out to all the Indian activists out there, and you're doing a great job of trying to change, what seems to be a society very set in its ways, and you get the same stuff that happens in the UK, the whole "it doesn't happen here" kind of stuff, that you have to break that barrier as well. But I think for sure, like there are some people in India who may be very receptive to the message, but then many people who just aren't, just due to the cultural and the religious stuff that's going on. What do you guys think? Do you think that it's harder or easier than other countries to convince people to be vegan in India?
I would say it is actually quite easier. If you discount the fact that a lot of people are like quite addicted to dairy, they just want their milk tea every day. But I guess the perception is changing, at least in major cities. In the major cities, at least most people have heard the word vegan. They at least have a rough idea of what it means. So I do have a very positive attitude that definitely we will see some good change in the future.
Yeah. And how many people are saying stuff like, oh, this is a Western idea and stuff? How often are you coming into that argument in India?
Probably every interaction that we have, it probably definitely comes.
Yeah. So one of the famous activists has suggested that we stop using the word vegan when we are especially talking to local communities. Not urban, rural stuff or the town stuff. People, and then we can use some regional words, something in the lines of plant-based, instead of using the word vegan. I mean, the word vegan is good. Instead using the word vegan is good because that gives them a way to search online to find out all the information. But maybe to appeal to local public, we will have to figure out a way to talk in the regional languages as well.
And also there is this thing, right? So here, since a lot of people are vegetarians, they try to overcompensate for their desires by eating a lot more dairy than they would if they were meat eaters, and that kind of fuels into their addiction, right? And the other problem is literally, we also have our own political tussles, right? The left, right, and stuff like that. In fact, what you would see is that both the left and the right, all of them, no exceptions, everyone says this is a Western propaganda and stuff like that. Everyone says this. Even the right says it, even the left says it, even the people who are apolitical say it. It's just something that, I don't understand why it is even considered as an argument. It's not even an argument, right? As we have already discussed. but I mean, I can safely say that literally every engagement that we have with anyone, they would probably bring up the Western concept idea, or they would say something like, why are you targeting me? Why are you not targeting that community? Why are you not targeting that community? Oh, it means you're afraid of them. You're targeting me because I'm weak and I'm oppressed and stuff like that. And there is also this, again, this is something that the intersectionals and the vegans here have done this, right?
The local version of intersectionals.
Yeah, they kind of absolve these marginalized communities, saying that, oh, it's okay for them to eat animals, you can't approach them with the message of veganism and stuff like that, which it's total nonsense, I believe.
So the intersectionals there are emboldening those people essentially just to continue doing what they're doing, because they're treating those people you're speaking to like they're the victims. Yeah. And this is just one of the problems that we need to speak out against.
So just to dispel the myth that vegans don't always just talk about veganism, would you like to tell us what else you do for fun? You are working, you're doing your activism, but apart from that, what do you do for fun?
Yeah, so I'm a big football fan. So obviously the Euros has just finished. Unfortunately, it didn't go out so well for England. We lost in the final, but fantastic that we got to the final in the first place. So I was very pleased with that. So other sports I quite like my combat sports. So I like MMA and boxing and stuff like that. So I watch a lot of that. And cooking, I like to cook and stuff. So yeah, I mean. Although I was going to say kind of related to vegan, but actually that's not related to veganism, right? Because veganism is actually the philosophy and not the diet. So yeah, outside of veganism, I'd say those are my interests and stuff, and that's what I like to do in my spare time.
Neither of us in the team of three, Saurav, Gaurav, and Aravind, neither of us are actually much of sports fans, so we can't comment on that. But
I used to be. At one point, I used to be a soccer fan. But as I already told George, when Argentina lost the World Cup with Germany, it was a great tussle, an emotional battle for me, because Germany was my favorite team, but Messi was my favorite player. So I was happy my favorite team won, but I was sad that my favorite player lost. So I was like, screw this, I'm not gonna watch football now.
Yeah. Who do people like with football and stuff? Who do people like support mainly on a club level in India? I know like there's quite a few like Man United fans and stuff like that in India. Or do you know who tends to be the popular teams they support?
The biggest, I think the biggest teams over here are Man U, Chelsea. There's a small cult following for Arsenal, and there is obviously the Real Madrid and Barcelona fans. But now that Ronaldo has went to Juventus, that battle has cadenced and they have stopped fighting there.
Yeah. But then cricket is the main thing. Like cricket is the thing that people are fanatical about in India, right? That's the big thing.
Yep.
And that's what you guys are good at, right? India has always had a fantastic cricket team. Well, football team not so much, but cricket. No one wants to play India at cricket. For sure.
So, what kind of music or movies are you currently into?
So, I'm not much of a movie buff. I'm really hit and miss with movies. If I was to watch 100 movies, there would probably only be sort of like 5 that sort of kept my attention. I'm quite bad at just sitting there watching a movie for a long time, and I often get lost and stuff in the plot and don't really know what's going on. So I'm not a good movie person. Music, I'm quite a musical person, so I can play instruments and stuff like that. But the music I tend to listen to these days tends to be more of this sort of electronic type of music. So I love like dubstep, drum and bass. Grime I like as well, trance. It's actually through grime music actually that I can kind of thank for me being vegan, because it's the grime artist JME who shared Gary Yourofsky's speech on my Facebook back in 2012. I'm a big JME fan, and he just followed that, just saying watch this, the whole thing, and lo and behold that was Gary's speech. So it's maybe thanks to through music actually that I'm vegan in the first place.
Wow, that's a very interesting connection.
One of
Yeah.
my favorite bands is Queen, who is also from UK, right? And Brian May, the guitarist. And since me and Gaurav both are actually guitarists, so I mean, because I think he's a vegetarian. I think Brian May is trying to become vegan or something like that. But even he has shared Gary Yourofsky's ad on TV or something like that, if I remember correctly. So
Yes, Brian May is quite the Yourofsky fan. Yeah, but yeah, he needs to go vegan. So Brian May, sort your shit out, bro, and make the switch. You've been fucking around for too long now, mate. You've got to just do it and go vegan. Here's the thing, isn't there, with celebrities? Why is it so hard to get celebrities to go vegan?
No, the problem is a lot of them do go vegan, but it is for all the wrong reasons. Like they just want to be a part of the trend. So many celebrities have been the people who broke the hearts of vegans.
Miley
Miley
Cyrus.
Cyrus.
Yeah.
I think only Joaquin Phoenix and a couple of others seem to be the ethical vegans among celebrities. But we just tell people not to look at celebrities as vegan inspiration. You look at people like Gary Yourofsky and maybe George Martin and the Vegan Veranda for vegan inspiration, because they don't have an agenda for asking you to go vegan. Like they don't want to get famous by that.
100%, it's from the heart. That's why we do it. And with celebs, you just never really know what the motivation is. And should we shouldn't even call it vegan at all. Miley Cyrus was never vegan. She was just doing it to be cool and trendy and whatever it was. And then as soon as she saw a nice grass-fed steak or whatever it is, she just dived right into it. So it's virtue signaling, trendy bullshit most of the time from celebs, unfortunately.
I think just to talk about the oppressor for a while, we can say that celebrities are into the animal industry culture so much so that they are using furs and all that, or maybe they can cry about that. It surrounds us so much, the fine dining surrounds us so much that we find it very hard to go vegan.
This is the thing, they live such pampered lives that when they go to the Oscars and wherever it is, I suppose they get so tempted by all these that they're being offered, but it works on the other way as well. They can also afford to hire a private chef to just cook them the most bomb vegan food all day, every day.
yeah.
So celebrities have got to sort their shit out, and I think that's one of the things. If you live like an extremely pampered lifestyle, you often push nasty things to the back of your mind. I think there's also a resistance from celebrities to watch things like slaughterhouse footage, because they just want to live in their nice little pampered bubble where everything's fantastic, and they don't want to take the red pill, so to speak. They'd rather just live their blue pill life.
So just to briefly touch upon music, Aravind is into jazz and blues a lot, and I love my metal. I just love the metal music.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
speaking-
a diverse taste from both of you. Good.
Speaking about blues, my favorite guitarist happens to be Eric Clapton, who also is from the UK. But he doesn't have favorable views on animals. I mean, I think he has supported fox hunting in the past, and he's also said some racist stuff right on stage when he was on drugs or something, and he got away with it. I mean, it's kind of funny that I would imagine, I can just imagine what would happen if the cancel culture that exists today existed when that episode happened.
Yeah, I have to say I'll have to look that up about Eric Clapton after the show. I hadn't heard that allegation about him, so I'll have to look that up. But I know he's a very good guitarist, so I can see why you're inspired by him for sure.
So a bit of local news for you. PETA, the organization, our views on the channel are quite famous. You can just go and look at it. Basically, our idea is if they're doing something good for the animals, and a non-vegan is trying to criticize PETA, that's a different thing. But if a vegan is criticizing PETA, it's about the ethics, the right way to do activism.
Yeah.
So they did something quite stupid recently. So there's this very big company in India called Amul. And they are basically, I think they cover 80 to 90% of the dairy in all of India.
Wow.
And PETA just went up and did something very stupid? Arvind, tell us.
Basically, they started out with this, online banter, right? And they just went on the offensive, and so basically, Amul put an ad in a newspaper, which was like fact versus myth. And in the facts, they were in the myth column, they put all the standard dairy practices like artificial insemination, slaughtering of cows, slaughtering of calves, all the standard practices they put as myths, and all the whitewashing and absolution of dairy was put as the facts. And what happened is
reversed.
Yeah, just reverse, like. So PETA, what they did was they partnered with two other organizations, and they went and approached the advertising standards committee or something like that, and they filed a case saying that, oh, you can't say this, this is like a misinformation and stuff like that, which is true. I agree, but the problem is they don't have leverage, right? I mean, 99% of India thinks that dairy is ethical, so you can't use that as leverage, right? So they just did that. And a few days later, the advertising committee says that, oh no, we totally vindicate Amul for their ads. They are totally not spreading misinformation and stuff like that. So what happened is essentially PETA lost. And what would an ideal loser do? They would kind of take a back seat and not
improve their methods, basically.
Yeah, improve the methods and not mess around with the person who defeated you, right? What PETA did was they wrote a letter to the MD saying that MD of Amul, by the way, that you need to change your company, like take all your dairy business down and start selling vegan milk. I mean, we agree with the message.
So instead of starting this flame war, they could have just improved their activism methods and made consumers make the switch. So now by attacking Amul directly, people have this image of Amul is very awesome, they are this very Indian brand, and then it makes PETA even further away from the truth.
Because taking on Amul and Amul winning the case, it's kind of resonated the idea that Amul is right and PETA is wrong, even though the opposite is true and PETA is right and Amul is wrong. I can see what you guys are saying. While I definitely applaud PETA's intentions and efforts, unfortunately that could have nastily backfired, and now as a result in India, you're probably getting a lot of people thinking that, because this is just how much people conform to like the law and stuff like that. Oh, Amul won the case, and therefore PETA is the bad guy here, kind of thing. But ultimately, it does seem like because India is the world's largest dairy consumer, right? And if you say Amul is like the producer of like 90% of the dairy or something crazy there, this is like a huge, gigantic force that you're kind of messing with. Like it's going to be a very tough nut to crack. So we've definitely got to think of better ways to do this, but for sure it'd be good to focus on the consumer, as much as the corporations, because Amul will change if the consumer wants the plant-based milk. Amul is only going to stop selling the cow murder formula when people don't buy it anymore. So we do have to change. Yeah, we do have to change, the society.
The message should be targeted towards, people in general, instead of starting these online and news wars with people who are obviously not going to change their business tactics because they're earning money from it. So we have, a bone to pick with these people, so to say.
There's ones where we can get our foot in the door, though, because if you think of like Ben and Jerry's, right? They've got a few vegan flavors of ice cream out, and they've recently, this is just the whole woke thing, right? They've recently just stopped selling ice cream in the West Bank and said this goes against our values to sell ice cream in Israeli-controlled territory of Palestine. Against your values, Ben and Jerry? Hang on, you're like participating in the rape and enslavement and murder of cows, and now you're talking about this goes against our values to sell. So this is one where we can, I think, point out the hypocrisy, and I might actually whip up like a little campaign actually to try and get Ben and Jerry's to go vegan, because that is utter hypocrisy. Because with Amul, that's an impossible job from my end, but with Ben and Jerry's, I feel we've kind of got our foot in the door there, because Ben and Jerry's are all about being very woke and progressive, and oppression is bad. So we can really call out their hypocrisy there.
Yeah.
You know?
And especially in defense of PETA in India, right? They like when they attacked Amul, so people, they have the same stupid arguments that this is a Western imposition on us. If you have the guts, you can target Islamic festivals like Eid, which is coming up, which is close to the day we are recording this podcast. And they're like, oh, why don't you target them why don't you target those communities and stuff like that. So what PETA did was they literally started a petition saying that so there is this article 28 in our constitution, right, which essentially says that it is okay to sacrifice animals for religious purposes. So PETA started an article saying that let's scrap this article and let's ban animal sacrifice in India for religious purposes, which essentially targeted Eid, right, which is the Islamic festival. And then people are like, there are those people who said that why don't you target those communities. They are still being dishonest, and they are running smear campaigns and stuff like that against PETA, which is kind of disgusting. And I mean, you can criticize PETA if you're on PETA's level, right? You can criticize PETA if you are vegan, if you do something for animal rights, right?
If you're doing a better job than they are.
You don't even have to do a better job, but you just have to do something, right? You just have to be an animal. You just have to not abuse animals yourself first. And what these people do is that they themselves abuse animals, and then they'll also complain about PETA's tactics, which I think is totally dishonest.
Oh yeah, it's utter hypocrisy. Like people who are funding and participating in this massacre, condemning PETA for certain things. It's like, I can definitely see why that's stupid. And another thing with this whole, why don't you go and talk to the Muslims and stuff? Well, if you go and talk to the Muslims will just say, oh, why are you targeting us? Go and talk to the Hindus and stuff. So everyone's just like this, right? They're just...
So, finally, I would like to ask you something I asked almost everyone. And this is a thing that me and Aravind have a bit of difference on. So what do you think about the future of veganism in UK and in the world? So like, do you see a positive thing, or is it like going to take a long time? What do you think?
I think one day every developed country in the world will be vegan. One day. I think the idea of a vegan world is going to be very, very, very tough, especially in poorer countries or countries where religious mandates say that, God says it's okay to, Saudi Arabia or somewhere like that. That just seems ridiculously impossible until the whole culture changes. In the UK, I can see the UK one day being a vegan country and looking back now in the same way that people look back on slavery and the Holocaust and things like that. But yeah, I do think it's going to be a long uphill battle. And to be honest, maybe humans might not even be around by the time this happens. So it's tough, but I do think one day, at least the most developed countries in the world will for sure be vegan. Killing animals won't stop. So let's say the UK was to be vegan in 200 years' time. There will still be random lunatics here going out killing animals, just like how we've outlawed human murder, but there's people who still murder humans, right? So the idea of killing animals and killing humans will never ever stop. Humans are too bad. But as a societal shift, I think it can happen in certain countries. But then there are certain countries I don't think it can happen in. One of those would probably be somewhere like Saudi Arabia. I think India would also be tricky just due to like what you guys are talking about and the whole cultural and religious stuff that goes on there. But, we have to keep fighting regardless, even though India will definitely be a tough nut to crack. every single justice movement started out with just a tiny number of people who said enough is enough, and it grew and grew from there. And that's what we've just got to keep doing.
I won't be as liberal as you to give the developing countries some slack. I would say they also have to step up their game, and more so because most of us have realized that it's much cheaper to be vegan. Most of the poor people in India, they don't have the fancy of having meat and all. Maybe on special occasions, or maybe once a year or once a month or something like that. And as we saw in the case of Gary Yourofsky, people who have been oppressed also understand that why they should not oppress animals. So in that vein, I have a very positive attitude. I think it would be we can see a mostly vegan earth within our lifetimes. So that is my very, very positive outlook, but Arvind doesn't feel the same.
What's your view, Aravind?
I'm a little bit more pessimistic than Gaurav is. I would say that by the time we kick off, we can at least say that there would be a fair amount of decay. I think by the time we kick off, we'll probably reach critical mass, but after that, the journey is kind of uphill. So that's kind of my view. I don't think that we're going to reach a vegan world within my lifetime or Gaurav's lifetime per se. But I mean, if it happens, who cares, right? Because when we turned vegan like 4 years ago for us, not many people knew what veganism is. And today, almost everyone knows what veganism is. And I mean, we're looking back retrospectively, it kind of feels too fast that, all of this happened in just 4 years, and now everyone at least has heard the word vegan. Because when I started doing activism, our primary goal was to just make people listen to the word vegan for the first time in their lives, right? And today, our priority has shifted to somehow like, okay, they've heard what vegan is, but let's show them what veganism is and how vegans live and stuff like that, which is why we came up with the channel, right? So I see that shift, and I see that it was pretty fast for me, and I mean, I wouldn't have expected it to happen so fast. So if it happens in my lifetime, I'll be more than happy, but I'm kind of pessimistic about it. I'm just being realistic, maybe.
Yeah, I think I agree a lot with you there, Aravind. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, certainly. But yeah, we have to just keep fighting. It sucks, but that's it.
I think we can end on that happy note that we have to keep fighting. We have to keep talking about that. So thank you very much, George, for coming on our show. We wish you all the best for your amazing channel and podcast, and your work is really commendable. Surely maybe we can hope someday for another collaboration with you. We will put all your links in the description, and guys, please check him out. He's quite amazing, quite inspiring. Until next time, stay safe, stay vegan. Goodbye.
Thanks, guys.